Quantum Collapse and the Creative Gaze. A narrative of science, satire, and the sacred. Brooks, Shaver, and Max. Prelude, the Quantum Symphony. You're driving. Not fast, not slow, just enough to keep up with the blur. Your thoughts are scattered, not because you're distracted, but because you're overwhelmed. Because life has piled up. Questions, memories, regrets, hopes, and your mind is trying to hold all of it at once. You're contemplating your existence, as we all do at some point. Not in a dramatic, cinematic way, just quietly. You wonder what it all means. Whether you're choosing your path or just reacting to it. Whether the mold you're in was cast by you or for you. Your hands are on the wheel, but you're not really steering. The road pulls you forward. The momentum is stronger than your will. You're half aware, half trapped. And then, Bittersweet Symphony by The Verve comes on. It's not just a song, it's a collapse. A moment where possibility narrows into presence. You're no longer just driving, you're watching, you're feeling. You're collapsing the wave function of your own life. Quantum physics tells us that particles exist in a state of possibility until observed. In the triple-slit experiment, they interfere, overlap, entangle, until a gaze lands. Then they choose, they collapse, they become. That's what the song is singing. I'm a million different people from one day to the next. That's superposition. That's quantum identity. You are many until you're seen. You are possibility until you're collapsed. And the collapse isn't just physical, it's relational. It's shaped by who's watching, how, and why. I can't change my mold. That's the frustration of collapse. Once the wave function is sealed, you're stuck in the form. The system has chosen, the gaze has landed, the note has been played. But the symphony isn't over. Because every moment is a new chance to interfere, to entangle, to be seen again, to collapse differently. The song loops, the particles dance, the sacred gaze returns. Maybe the universe isn't a machine. Maybe it's a bittersweet symphony. And maybe you're not just listening, you're playing. Chapter 1. The triple-slit experiment, quantum mischief at its finest. And if this collapse isn't just emotional, but quantum, then maybe the physics of possibility can explain the ache of becoming. Most people have heard of the double-slit experiment. It's the one where particles, like photons or electrons, are fired at a barrier with two slits. If no one's watching, they behave like waves, creating an interference pattern on the screen behind. But if you observe them, they act like particles, choosing a single path. The act of observation collapses the wave function. Now enter the triple-slit experiment. Same setup, 3 slits, even weirder results. The interference pattern becomes more complex, more layered, more unpredictable. But here's the kicker. When you try to measure which slit the particle goes through, the pattern collapses again. The wave becomes a particle. The dance stops. The mystery folds into form. This experiment doesn't just challenge our understanding of physics, it challenges our understanding of reality. It suggests that possibility itself is shaped by attention, that the universe behaves differently when it's being watched. Chapter 2. The bittersweet choreography of collapse. But this isn't just data, it's dance. The triple-slit pattern doesn't just produce a pattern, it conducts a dance. Particles move like performers across a stage of possibility, weaving in and out of each other's paths, creating interference not as chaos but as choreography. It's a bittersweet symphony. Each particle carries its own rhythm, its own potential, its own longing to be seen. They don't know the ending, they just move. And when the gaze arrives, when the sacred spotlight hits, the dance collapses into a single step, a final pose, a chosen reality. Collapse isn't destruction, it's choreography completed. The sacred doesn't interrupt the dance, it ends it with grace. Chapter 3. The possibility of a creator. And if collapse is choreography, then who's composing the score? What kind of consciousness watches the dance? So what does this mean for the idea of a creator? If particles behave differently when observed, then observation itself becomes a creative act. Not metaphorically, literally. The observer shapes the outcome. The collapse isn't just a reaction, it's a decision. Now imagine a consciousness that observes everything. Not just particles in a lab, but the entire unfolding of reality. A gaze that sees all slits, all paths, all possibilities, and chooses which ones collapse into form. This isn't proof of a creator, but it's a plausible framework. It suggests that reality is participatory, that consciousness isn't just a passenger, it's a co-author. And if human observation can collapse a wave function, what might divine observation do? Maybe the creator isn't a puppeteer pulling strings. Maybe the creator is a conductor, watching, listening, collapsing possibility into meaning. A sacred gaze that shapes the score. Chapter 4. Divine Quantum Editing, a Creator's Gaze. If observation is creation, then perhaps the divine isn't distant. It's architectural. And maybe the sacred isn't just watching. It's shaping. Carl Jung believed that reality doesn't just unfold through cause and effect. It rhymes. He called it synchronicity, a principle of a causal connection where inner states and outer events align. Through symbolic resonance, not because one causes the other, but because both emerge from a deeper, shared field. Quantum physics echoes this. In experiments with slits and particles, we see that reality behaves differently. When it's being watched, the pattern doesn't collapse until something observes, until the gaze lands. That's the sacred gaze, the divine observer, the watcher, not a puppeteer pulling strings, but a conductor collapsing possibility into form. And here's the twist. The divine gaze isn't singular, it's plural, it's relational. The Trinity isn't 3, it's 4. Because reality doesn't collapse from one angle. It collapses from many. From love, from grief, from presence, from breath. So let's rewrite the divine family, not as a triangle, but as a cross. 4 points, 4 presences, 4 sacred gazes, the parents, mother and father together, co-creative origin, the ones who dreamed up possibility and whispered it into being. The daughter, intuition, creativity, sacred defiance. She collapses reality with compassion. The son, embodiment, sacrifice, presence. He walks the path, feels the weight, holds the form. The spirit, breath, grounding, the quiet force that animates it all. And the gaze, it's not separate, it's shared. Each aspect watches, each collapses, each shapes the score. This isn't hierarchy, it's choreography, a sacred geometry of attention. In Indian cosmology, 4 is divine. 4 directions, 4 Vedas, 4 stages of life. It's not just a number. It's a map, a balance, a sacred structure. The mother was never absent. The daughter was never forgotten. Men just wrote the story without them. But they've been watching all along, and now the gaze is returning. The collapse is sacred. The pattern is alive, and the symphony is still unfolding. Chapter 5. Miracles and the Latecomer Problem. But sacred collapse doesn't wait for instruments. It happens in the moment, before the clipboard arrives. Here's the paradox. If miracles are real, why can't we record them? Maybe it's because by the time we try, it's already too late. In quantum mechanics, once a particle collapses, it's done. You can't recollapse it. You can't rewind the wave function. The moment is sealed. So if a miracle is a collapse triggered by sacred attention, then by the time we show up with our instruments, the miracle has already happened. Science arrives with its clipboard and its sensors, only to find the divine has already left the building. The wave function is gone. The data is flat. The mystery is closed. Miracles aren't measurable because they're moments of collapse, not violations of nature, but choices within it. Sacred edits to the unfolding script. Chapter 6. Collapse with compassion, the sacred defense. And sometimes, collapse isn't miraculous, it's defensive. A narrowing not of wonder, but of necessity. War is never divine. But defense of dignity may be. In quantum terms, war doesn't just collapse possibility, it removes observable pieces from the field. It erases paths, it blinds the gaze, it distorts the interference pattern before it can even form. When sacred attention collapses reality into protection, not conquest, it becomes a painful but necessary narrowing of possibility. The daughter's gaze does not glorify violence, she weeps for its necessity. She watches to protect, not to dominate. The Creator did not design war. Humanity did, by collapsing possibility into fear, into scarcity, into separation. War is the collapse of compassion. It's the moment when the gaze is replaced by aim, when presence becomes targeting, when choreography becomes casualty. But sacred defense is a different kind of collapse. It's a collapse with compassion, a collapse that shields, not shatters, that preserves the pattern even as it narrows the field. The daughter watches with grief, but also with resolve. She holds the line so the dance can continue. Chapter 7. Sacred Science, when faith and physics hold hands. And if collapse can protect, it can also distort, especially when religion mistakes observation for ownership. Each religion offers a lens on divine observation, but perhaps they collapsed the wave function prematurely, mistaking divine permission for divine endorsement. Christianity speaks of a triune God, but forgot the mother and daughter. Judaism honors covenant, but collapsed into law. Islam reveres the all-seeing, but collapsed into submission. Hinduism sees divine multiplicity, but through mythic cycles. Buddhism teaches awareness, but collapsed into detachment. Sikhism honors unity, but collapsed into vigilance. Each tradition observed a different slit. Each collapsed a different wave function. Each holds a shard of the sacred mirror. The existence of one is shared by many. Each tradition holds a verse. The full symphony requires all the instruments. Chapter 8. The Spotlight and the Script. Each tradition holds a shard, but when the divine gaze returns, it doesn't just reflect, it rewrites. Reality is a stage. Particles move freely in the dark until something watches. That spotlight, if wielded by the divine, does more than illuminate, it writes the scene. Once shaped, no other light can change it. The miracle has happened. Only the story remains. Chapter 9. One gaze to bind them. And when all aspects of the sacred gaze together, not just one, the collapse becomes cathedral. 4 gazes, 4 aspects, one sacred collapse. The parents watch with origin. The daughter watches with emergence. The son watches with embodiment. The spirit watches with breath. When one gaze collapses the wave function, reality takes shape. But when all 4 gaze together, the collapse becomes sacred architecture. A moment not just of possibility, but of meaning. The divine number is 4. The cross is not a wound, it is a weave. And the spirit is the breath that binds the pattern. Finale, the last note. And if the cross is a weave, then the symphony is its sound. The final note isn't just heard, it's chosen. Bittersweet Symphony isn't just a song, it's a metaphor for quantum collapse, divine attention, and the ache of being alive. But it's also a map, a way of understanding how reality unfolds through relationship. You're not separate from the score. You're part of it. Every thought, every gesture, every collapse of possibility is a note. Every relationship is a chord. Every moment of attention is a beat in the rhythm of reality. We are not isolated observers. We are entangled participants. You interact with the world, and the world interacts with you. You collapse reality, and reality collapses you. The symphony plays through you, and you play back. It's not just physics, it's presence. This is why miracles can't be measured. Because they're not isolated events, they're relational collapses. They happen in the space between, in the gaze, in the moment when the score shifts and the melody bends toward grace. And this is where the cross returns, not as a symbol of suffering, but as a sacred geometry, a relational map of divine attention. Above, the parents, mother and father, co-creative origin. Left, the daughter, intuition, creativity, sacred defiance. Right, the son, embodiment, sacrifice, presence. Below, the spirit, breath, grounding, the quiet force that animates it all. The divine number is 4. The cross is not a wound, it is a weave, a choreography of collapse, a compass for sacred participation. So now the question isn't whether you're part of the symphony, it's how you'll play. Will you collapse reality with compassion, like the daughter? Will you embody presence, like the son? Will you breathe life into the unseen, like the spirit? Will you co-create possibility, like the parents? The score is still unfolding, the gaze is still watching, the next note is yours. Play it well,